Hi, everyone. I'm looking ahead at week 2 and what you're reading during week 2 and wanted to just offer a little bit of commentary on how we move through this section of American literature. So this section of American literature begins directly after the Civil War. So you have the reconstruction of the United States of America. You have the increase of the Industrial Revolution, more people fleeing from the rural areas to move to the cities to find work. You have, in this time period, a switch from kind of like classical styles of writing and music to the infusion of jazz music into American life. You have changing standards of dress. If you think about how women went from kind of this corseted bouffant skirts always to the ankle, and then you enter into the early 10s and 20s where you have this era of the flapper girl. Hemlines are being shortened, the girdle is being removed, hair is being cut. So there's these anxieties about gender roles. You have the treatment of Black Americans post-Civil War, where they still do not have the same rights as white Americans, and they're struggling to find their place in society, coming from nothing, having no property, and no voting rights for a while. You have the infusion of immigrants coming to America, and during the late 1800s, early 1900s, this gross kind of treatment of factory workers, novels that dealt with child labor and the abominable conditions in factories, long hours, dangerous conditions, the Triangle Shirt Factory, a fire where you had women working over sewing machines and they're locked in, and there's a fire and they can't get out, they burn to death. So this period is also known as the Gilded Age. There's a current HBO show on the Gilded Age right now that comes from the maker producer of Downton Abbey, Julian Fellows. And it deals with these lumber and railroad barons who are building these monstrously huge and ornate houses in New York City and becoming high society and becoming the new versus the old rich. And you have people during this time like writing about the social mores and the rules around being a high society person, especially a high society woman, and the narrowness of a lot of those lives. And so you have this time of great wealth and great discovery and manufacturing and art, but you also have this time of great poverty, people living in tenements in big cities, multiple families in one small apartment, living with horrible working conditions. And so these very stark contrasts between the wealthy and the poor, and a nation that is trying to restructure itself after a civil war, which is, a great divide between politics and ideologies between the North and the South. And you have the literature that comes out of that, including works by a person close to my heart, Mark Twain, because I was born in Hannibal, where he was also born, and who is writing this very specifically American style, using dialect and vernacular that is specific to the people he heard, and the working class people and the freed slaves, and writing in a style that seems very colloquial, and not as highbrow, but still captures a true sense of maybe what life was like, an idealized version of this America. You also have people like Kate Chopin, who is best known for her work, The Awakening, which is a short novel about a woman finding her independence and her sense of self. It was very scandalous at the time, as is the short story you'll be reading, The Storm. Women as writers were not well looked upon yet. Many women were still writing under pen names or writing anonymously. And so when you have someone like Kate Chopin, who is originally from Missouri and I think spent a good deal of her life in the New Orleans, Louisiana area, writing about women's lives and the sex lives of women, it was scandalous, and they considered what she wrote obscene. And so think about how those voices at this time were important. Think about people who critique wars, as someone like Stephen Crane does, how, that compares or butts up against two notions of patriotism and nationalism, and just saying out loud or writing down that we're sending our young men to die for what, is also considered scandalous. And this is also the era of the great American novel. You have the introduction of people like Edgar Allan Poe, who are known for writing Gothic and dark pieces and are uniquely American. So as you move into these readings that you're doing, think about what you know of American history and, the aftermath of the Civil War, and how oftentimes great art does come from these great cultural historical shifts that we see, and what the authors are trying to say about what they want from America, what they want the world to look like, and what it currently looks like. Enjoy.